Just maybe raise your chair just a hair.
Yeah. Okay, I think we are live. Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday, Friday, March 7th. Hope you're having a great week. I apologize, I'm a couple minutes later than normal. Ironically, today I'm going to be talking about productivity, and if I was truly on my game, I would have been here right at 11 on time 3 minutes ago. But I think 3 minutes is within the margin of safety. But today we're talking about productivity, which is something that has really been on my mind a lot over the last few weeks. As I attempt to do more and more and bigger things. And productivity is such an important aspect of that. I mean, I think that every time I try to kind of level up my effort or my impact, I start feeling time constrained and feel like I'm not getting enough done. And oftentimes that means that I need to reassess the systems that I am following or the processes that I'm following in order to achieve whatever it is I'm looking to achieve. And, as you grow, that changes, and maybe your productivity systems need to change. And that's certainly been my lived experience. It's not something that is one size fits all, and certainly not even a one size fits all throughout a year or through a career or through a life. You have to continue to evolve and grow and figure these things out, figure out what's working for you. But tomorrow we're actually trying a new format in the videos that we're publishing, and we're doing a video solely on productivity and I think 10 best productivity hacks that I have found useful for me, at least in the last few months, and as I enter into my next stage of entrepreneurship. And so I think that hopefully those productivity hacks will be something that other people will resonate with, and you can try them and see if they work for you in your situation, whatever that might be. But we're going to kind of, with these Q&As, experiment a little bit and do a theme every week. We've been getting more broader questions about business and entrepreneurship, which I absolutely love answering and will continue to answer and address. But entrepreneurship and business encompasses so many different things, so many different aspects of life that you have to ultimately tweak and master and figure out. And so I think we're going to take a different theme every week and try to hone in on that to make it as useful, hopefully, as possible, and as actionable for you all or whoever is watching. Because to me, such a big motivation for me to be doing these live streams and doing all the content that I'm doing is, in fact, to help you or help anyone find actionable ways that they're able to improve their life and build towards their vision or to whatever goal that they're looking to achieve. I can certainly talk about my experiences and my trials and tribulations and the things that have worked for me, and the things that have spectacularly failed for me, which I have a long list of both. But I am a big believer in a constant growth and constant improvement and experimenting and figuring out how to be a better person and a better entrepreneur. And that is what life is about to me. And I hope to use my forum here to share some of the things that have worked for me, in the hopes that other people might find them useful and can go out and take action against them in their life, and improve their life and the lives of the people around them, because that is what life is about at the end of the day, and what to me at least entrepreneurship is about. And entrepreneurship is just a great forum to be able to have that impact, and that is what keeps me motivated every day, and also why I am motivated to continue to do this content. So with that, hopefully we have some good questions for productivity today. Hello, Jamie Young from Ireland. Kind of crazy to me, somebody from Ireland is logging in to watch it, but I really, really appreciate it. Nice thing about productivity is no matter where you are in this world, we can all use more productivity, especially in a world where there's so much distraction and so many such a short-term focus, productivity becomes very hard, and it's a battle that we all have to fight every single day. And I think that's applicable whether you're in Ireland or Japan or here in the United States. So thank you for joining. Let me just put this bigger so I can see it. Hi, Mr. David from Iran. Hi, Mr. David. Recently started watching your stuff. It has been providing us with great value and information. We started with a cleaning product company manufacturing carpet cleaner odor remover. Is there a question, or is that
No,
that's a okay? Well, that's super cool. That's right in my wheelhouse. I don't know much about that market specifically, but I love the fact that it's a consumable product, and it's something that is going to continue to be needed 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now. We're likely still going to have the same need to remove odor from carpets and whatnot. So hopefully you can figure out a sustainable, competitive business model for you to go to market in that, and carve out a good long-term business in that niche. I mean, it's a cool niche, and I think that is one that certainly has a lot of potential if you can figure out how to stand out, which is the oftentimes the trick. Jamie Young, can we talk about how you see productivity in your business? Are you hours in, workout, or task focus? Productivity is not about the input. It's about the output relative to the input. I mean, a lot of times you can put in a lot of effort into something without getting much of a result, and that would be super unproductive, right? I mean, so by definition, productivity is what output you're getting relative to unit input of work or time or whatever your unit of input is. So by definition, productivity is about what you're getting done. I think that as a leader, what I'm thinking about are what are my highest leverage activities in any given week that are going to give me the greatest chance of, or that are, sorry, I can hear myself somewhere else. But what are the leverage points that I have in any given week that I can use that are going to give me the greatest output relative to the effort or the input that I'm putting into it? And the more of those things that I can stack in any given week, the higher the output I'm going to have. So it's really about, to me, finding those highest leverage activities that are going to have the greatest impact relative to the actual time that it takes for me to execute it. And so that's how I'm thinking about productivity. And when we look throughout our organization, it really just depends on what type of a role you're in. I mean, and so, one thing that makes us unique, and I think me as an entrepreneur unique, is that, we have a very established manufacturing business. We also have a large, distribution business, as well as a big, marketing machine that sells our brand. And those are all kind of unique businesses and unique functions that all roll up into the same organization. And so productivity within each of those units looks very different. And so you need to be thinking about, what is it that you're actually trying to accomplish? What business are you actually in? And then thinking about productivity relative to that business. So like in our manufacturing, for instance, then, it's more incremental productivity for us. We're not going to be able to go double our output per person overnight, without a significant technology investment, for instance, and like you're limited by, what technology is available. So oftentimes you're looking at real incremental improvement, incremental in productivity. And so that might be, might look fairly small, but you need to compound those kind of small wins over a longer period of time that are going to lead into larger productivity gains. But then when you look at something like marketing productivity, and you have tools like AI that are coming out and all these other, like new technologies that allow you and your teams to be so much more productive, then all of a sudden you're going to be measuring productivity in orders of magnitude in much bigger shifts than you would be, like, say, in our manufacturing business. So it really just depends on the type of productivity that you're looking at or that you're measuring. But to answer your specific question, ultimately it comes down to what is the output relative to unit of input, and that is how you need to be thinking about it. It's not about hours worked or how much effort you're putting into it. It's how much output you're getting relative to unit of effort, however you're defining that unit of effort. So hopefully that answers your question. But if you have more specific questions, happy for you to answer it, and ask it, and we will dive in. How does your experience as an options trader at Goldman Sachs influence your approach to decision making and productivity when you transitioned to filter buy? That's a good question. One thing that the number one thing that I think my time in finance taught me that I would highly recommend for anyone is that you have to learn to make decisions quickly, and oftentimes you get put into situations that maybe are less than ideal because you maybe entered into a decision a little too quickly, or something just bad naturally happens, and you as an entrepreneur, your job is to to take an action, have a bias to action that is going to help you to overcome that bad situation as quickly as possible. And so my time at Goldman, because I was a market maker that was actually always by definition taking positions that clients did not want, because your responsibility in that case is to provide a price to a client that is then going to trade with you, which means you're taking the opposite position of whatever that smart client that probably has a lot more information than you wanted to take at that time. And so by definition, I got stuck dealing with a lot of kind of bad positions that other people did not want to deal with. And I think that basically gave me helped me to build the muscle of making decisions very quickly, owning them, and then being creative to make those positions good for me in the end. And I think that is just an example of business and what business is about. And the nice thing about business is it happens a bit slower than a trading environment. So when you're in business, you have a little bit more time to react and to overcome and to make decisions and whatnot. But still, the quicker you can make that decision, that you can own that decision, and then figure out a way to make that whatever position or whatever situation you're in your best interest, or make it good for you, or be creative and have a good outcome from that, the better off you're going to be. And that's just a muscle that you build over time. I mean, it's not something that you're going to have all the answers on day one, or that you're born with, or that is natural for anyone. It's a muscle that you build, and the only way you build that is by making decisions and owning them, and making mistakes and overcoming those mistakes, and doing that day in and day out. And that is really what entrepreneurship is about. And I was very fortunate early on that I think I got a master class in that, working on a trading floor and working in that trading environment, because that just really, hyper focused, really shortened the time frame of that learning curve, or that muscle building curve, so to speak. But I think building that muscle as an entrepreneur is one of the key things that everyone needs to be thinking about. So that would be my best answer for you. What is my morning routine? Well, I have a pretty consistent morning routine in that I wake up at the same time every day, between 5:45 and 6. I then have a cup of coffee and really kind of just mentally get prepared for the day. And I'm very conscious to not look at my phone and not kind of get sucked into social media or any electronic devices. Like that first 30 minutes of every day is a very important resetting time for me, that I think really allows me to set my intention for the day, and to start off with a kind of calm purpose as I start the day. So I think that's one tip I would give for anyone, is to kind of stay away from your phone or electronic devices early on, and not get sucked into that with your early mental energy. And then I go to the gym every day, or 6 days a week, at 6:30 in the morning, for an hour to an hour and a half, depending on what I've got going on that day. For me, starting my day with a hard workout is a great mental mental refocus for me. It really, the workout is oftentimes the hardest part of my day, certainly physically. And so it makes everything else that I'm dealing with seem not so bad once I get through it. Like this morning, I did kind of interval VO2 max type training, and you feel like you're going to die when you're done with that if you do it right. But now I'm sitting here very energized by that because I've gotten that out of the way, and I don't have to go and do that again today. And it's a great for me mental practice as much as a physical practice, and that is why the kind of morning workout is so important to me. So then I go home, have breakfast, and I come to my office, which is about 10 minutes away, and I start work. So pretty simple, but that is basically what almost every day looks like for me. On Sunday mornings, I don't generally go to the gym, but I have been trying to make myself get up and go for a walk on Sunday mornings, and kind of keep that physical activity piece of my routine. But 6 days a week, you basically that's my morning routine, and I basically don't deviate from that at all. And generally, when I'm traveling, I even stay with that routine because it's super important to me. So that's what I got. In what ways have technological advancements and AI integration played a role in enhancing productivity within FilterBuy's operations? It's a constantly evolving thing, right? I mean, and I think that, I when I think about my business philosophy, and something that I intend to talk a lot more about on my channels in the coming months, you know, I'm attracted to long-term, sustainable businesses that I believe are likely to stand the test of time, and businesses that are not likely to get disrupted by new technologies in any meaningful way in the foreseeable future. But at the same time, I think it is a business's responsibility to continue to evolve and to use the technologies that are at your disposal to be as efficient and as competitive as possible in whatever industry you're in. So I hold both of those things to be very true, and both of those things to be extremely important. So like, I'm going to constantly, as I grow and as we look at buying other businesses and partnering with other businesses, first and foremost, I'm looking for businesses in long-term, sustainable business models that I think are likely to stand the test of time, regardless of technology. So like, that is like kind of the core, thesis behind, say, our air filter business and behind any other kind of business that I'm in. But at the same time, we are constantly experimenting with technology and experimenting with new tools that are coming out that are going to allow us to be more productive and enhance our productivity. So both of those things are true. And so like within FilterBuy, we are constantly looking at ways of doing that. And so like within, like we've spent, invested about $10 million over the last 2 years in new technology around our equipment, and making our equipment and production processes more automated. So that's been a huge initiative for us that, we started a couple of years ago, and we're continuing to invest in and continuing to build around. And so that's more like on the technology piece. And then when you look within the AI piece, I mean, we have a very established, kind of ERP system that we largely built ourselves, that we're constantly iterating on and improving. And then we also produce a lot of data from like, business perspective that is very useful. And we are putting that into, data warehouses that we're then able to use AI now to be able to garner insights much quicker, with a much smaller team than historically would have been needed. So just as an example, we're currently looking at our pricing strategies, because we have, thousands of SKUs that we're selling across lots of different platforms, and making sure that we have the right pricing strategy and pricing structure is extremely important. And so that's an area where we've been able to use technology and AI to give us a lot of insights much quicker, to hopefully help us to inform much better decisions. So that would be an example of how you can use AI and technology today to enhance a business that is kind of more old school and non-technology focused. And so what I'm interested in ultimately is the intersection of those two things. The business models and the products that are likely to stand the test of time, that are not going to have meaningfully technological disruption in the coming decades. Those are the industries that I'm investing in, and we as a business are investing in, and that I'm interested in partnering with. But at the same time, we need to be at the forefront of using technology to improve our processes and our efficiency and our competitive place within the market. And so I think a lot of times people feel like it's one or the other. And the reality is, I think that the best businesses are actually the intersection of those two things. And that is what I am very much focused on. You're going to hear me talking about this subject a lot more in the future. And it's how we at FilterBuy are thinking about it. So just because you're in an old school business, it's not an excuse to ignore technology. I think that if you want to build a sustainable business, you have to continually evolve. You have to continually use all the tools at your disposal in order to make your business as efficient as possible, because that's the only way that you're going to stay competitive and continue to offer the best customer experience at the best price possible, which ultimately is the underpinning of almost any successful long-term business. But at the same time, I want to do that in industries that are not likely to be disrupted by technology anytime soon. And so both of those things can be true. And I think that's where people need to be focused. It's certainly where I intend to be focused. So if you're watching my content or you're interested in my content, that's the kind of thing we're going to be focused on and talking about. What productivity tips would you offer to new entrepreneurs looking to build and scale their business effectively? The ironic thing is, it all starts with the long-term vision. And I say that a lot, and I think I think just in talking with certain people, I don't know that people understand the essence of that yet. But you need to know where you're going. Just like if you're trying to get somewhere, you have to know what your final destination is before you can plot the course to getting to that destination, right? And it may take you, months to get to that destination, but it's something that you have to know or it may take you years to get to that destination, or decades to get to that destination. But you have to know where you're going to be able to plot a course. And the reason I talk about that in the framework of productivity is that so many times people take a lot of action short term, but they don't have any purpose to that action, or maybe that purpose changes day to day. And so, and then that leads to lots of frustration because they're spinning their wheels, doing a lot of activity. They're very frantic, but then they're not getting anywhere, and they wonder why. And generally, that's because they don't really have that vision of where they're going, or that purpose of where they're going. And that's why, to me, it all starts with that, because it would be impossible for me to wake up every day and work as hard as I do, or to make the decisions that I do, if I didn't have a long-term framework that I was making those decisions around. And that is why, like with young people, I encourage people to not, enter into entrepreneurship or something like that too hastily, right? Like, you need to make sure that you go out and you get the experience to really have the framework to be able to think like, hey, this is how I think about the world, and this is what I want to spend my life doing, at least in some broad sense. It doesn't have to be super narrow, but you have to at least to know broadly who you are, where you're going, what type of person you want to be, what type of business you want to be in. You need to have answers to that before you embark on any long-term journey like entrepreneurship. But once you have that, then it comes down to having short-term tangible goals and plans. And so, like, late last year and early this year, we put out a lot of content around our planning for FilterBuy in 2025. The reason why we go through and do that whole planning process is because that is what is going to dictate our short-term activity, right? And when you have that process and you have those goals, then all of your activity is going to be focused around meeting those targets and meeting those goals. And that is what keeps you accountable in your productivity journey as you're trying to figure out, hey, like, how am I going to make this happen? Well, once you have those tangible goals, you're going to start then saying, well, I need to do these 10 things to hit this short-term target, and then that becomes your list of tasks you have to check off and do. But that target and that goal setting is what holds you accountable to making those to making those things happen, right? And so, like when I'm thinking about productivity, it's starting with the macro, starting with that long-term vision, is that's like the framing mechanism for everything else. And then you set your short-term goals. Like I'd like to do yearly planning, then quarterly planning, and then once you set that, then your weekly planning or your day-to-day planning is going to be consistent with whatever your quarterly, yearly, and long-term goals are. And that becomes your filtering mechanism for like, hey, like, is this activity getting me closer to that or not? And if the answer is yes, you're going to do it. If the answer is no, then you're going to filter it out, because you're going to say, hey, I need to be focused on whatever it is that's helping me to meet these long-term goals. So that is why the goal setting, both long-term, medium-term, and short-term, is so important. But it all starts with the long-term, because that is how you can, distill it down to those short-term goals that you need to be attacking. And I know that people may hear that and it sounds like overwhelming, probably to some people. And I get that, but the reason I talk about it so often, and I'm so and I'm so adamant that it's so important, is because I think that if you really want to get anywhere, it has to start with that bigger vision and that bigger purpose. And it's okay if you don't have that yet, but don't rush it, don't force it, don't go out and make irreparable life decisions, like starting a business or borrowing money or whatever it is, until you have answers to those questions. And then once you get answers to those questions, then it becomes very formulaic. Hey, like I know where I'm going, like what is going to help me to get closer to that on a day-by-day basis. And that is really the genesis of any long-term fruitful journey, in my opinion. And that's where it needs to start. So hopefully you find that useful. You run a major business, but you're also a family man. How do you stay present for your family while managing everything I filter by? Well, first of all, I'm certainly not perfect, and no one is perfect. And one thing that you have to realize is that things ebb and flow, and seasons change, and like, there are going to be times where you're likely more work focused than you should be, and there's probably times where you need to be more family focused, and so that can ebb and flow throughout a year, and certainly throughout a career. And I think you have to have some grace with yourself, in the understanding that there's never going to be perfect balance, and it's that like balance just does not exist. I mean, you're ultimately going to be trade-offs to every decision you make, and you just have to make sure that you're aware of them when you're doing it. But also at the same time, it really comes down to priorities and what you're going to prioritize in your life. I mean, and I've set up my life that is, very much centered around my family and my business. And those are the two things that drive, every life decision, or my kind of family and my long-term, happy family goals, as well as my long-term business goals. And what that means is there's not a lot of time or space for anything else in my life. I mean, everything basically revolves around that. And, to me, that is a great trade-off, because those are the things that are the most important to me. And, I don't have, a ton of activities or interest outside of those two core things. As my family gets older, then perhaps that will shift, and that's okay. But at this point in my life, it's very much, family and business focused, and those are my two priorities. And I certainly have found ways to balance that. I mean, I'm home for dinner every night at 6:30. I have done my best to travel less in the last couple of years than I was before. And those are kind of trade-offs that you ultimately make, that you do because it's important from a family perspective. And I think that just understanding that both of those things can be important, and having a supportive partner and spouse that can help you to that understands that, and understands that there are times when these things are going to ebb and flow is certainly important, and making sure everybody's on the same page and understanding is super critical. And I was very fortunate in that category. But I think that the idea of a perfect balanced life is, it sets a lot of people up to fail or to feel like failures when it's not really failing. It's just, it's a constant balancing act. And sometimes you're going to do better at it than others. And you have to figure out what works for you. And I mean, I figured out what worked for me, but ultimately, that leaves little room for things other than work or family time. And, that's a trade-off that I'm personally willing to make, but everybody is going to have different levers that they want to pull, and some people may not want to work as hard, and there's nothing wrong with that. You ultimately just have to have the self-awareness to figure out what it is that works for you, and what works for me may be very different than what works for you, and that's okay. But for me, it's about focusing on those two aspects of my life, and basically everything else takes a backseat to that. How do you personally structure your day-to-day to stay focused and avoid distractions? Well, for me, it all starts on Sundays. I am a big believer in planning out my week on a week-to-week basis, and I do it on Sunday because, I by Sunday I've had the time for the previous week to kind of sink in. I have time to sit down, really think about where I am, in terms of my goals, where I am in terms of activities that happened in the previous week that maybe I had not foreseen. And I use that to really structure my week in the context of whatever travel I've got or whatever things I have scheduled. I then structure my week to make sure that I'm accomplishing whatever the highest leverage activities that I know I need to be accomplishing that week ahead. So then I actually write them down so I can go through the week and actually cross those off as I go through the week to make sure that I have addressed all of those high leverage activities that I identify in my Sunday planning. Right. And I've been doing that for years. And for me, it's super critical because, I definitely, get things that get scheduled months in advance sometimes. And I try to limit the amount of time that happens, but I have things that kind of fill up my calendar or fill up my time for things that I have to do, even while trying to minimize it. But I need to make sure that week to week, I am not, not doing the highest leverage, like business activities that need to be focused on in that given week. And Sunday is my time to really reassess, recalibrate, make sure that, with all the up to date information that I have, that going into that following week, I have a list of the most important things that I have to accomplish that week, no matter what. And Sunday is my time to do that. And then sometimes, things come up and priorities change because something can come up and be, way higher priority that you did not foresee. But oftentimes on Sunday, I can come into the week with real clarity about what the week is going to entail and what I need to be accomplishing in order to make that week successful. And so that Sunday planning is what's super important for me. I mean, the other thing that I would just mention, and I don't know that, like, you have to understand where you are in your business and where you are in your journey. For me, I am doing my best to spend more of my time in unstructured kind of creative time, because that is where I find, I do my best work and can come up with the highest leverage decisions that ultimately propel the business forward. And so, I really do my best as much as humanly possible, although I'll tell you this week, I did not do a good job of it, of blocking my meetings into 1 day or 2 days max, to try to leave a lot of the rest of my time to kind of explore and to think through more strategic initiatives that I think can be really impactful for the business as we move forward. And, I think that is a bit of a luxury. Like early on in my career, Sundays was the only time that I could ever do that because my whole week I would spend operating. And I think for most people, that's realistic, that you're going to be spending your whole week operating and doing things. And then you're going to have to use your nights and weekends as your time to kind of be creative and think. But I would just encourage everyone to make sure that they do structure enough time into their life, into their schedule, to be able to take a breath and, sit back and strategically think about, about what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish, kind of take a bit of a step back and make sure that they can see the forest from the trees and are not getting just too stuck into the weeds. And that's why that kind of unstructured creative time is so important for me. And I guard that very religiously. But I do think that's a bit of a luxury of having been doing this for 12 plus years and kind of now building my life in a way that allows that. It's not how I started and not how most people are going to start. But I think that even early on, having that kind of either Sunday time or just nice and weekend time, like whatever makes sense for you and your schedule, to make sure you have time to really sit back, think bigger picture, understand where you're going, make sure that you're aligned with your long-term vision, your long-term goals, and that your short-term activity is consistent with that. And for me, that's where the Sunday planning really comes in. And so I think in tomorrow's video, we talk more about that. And I think I go into a bit more detail about exactly how I do it. So I would suggest watching that tomorrow. I guess at 1 p.m. tomorrow, it probably will be out on productivity. But that's kind of high level how I think about it. What's one habit or mindset shift that made the biggest impact on your productivity as a business leader? Well, the habit is what I think I just told you about about Sunday, but it kind of turns a broader mindset. And this is another thing that I intend to be talking a lot more about, just because I think it's so important and not something that people talk enough about. But at the end of the day, a business is just a set of systems that when you repeat them, or when you do that system consistently, you get a desired outcome and in a repeatable manner. And ultimately, thinking about those systems is what is so important. And I think it's so hard when you're early on in your entrepreneurial journey to really think about those systems and what those systems are, because you spend so much time just trying to make stuff work, or you spend so much time in the weeds that you don't really have the time to step back and think about, like, what is the system that I am operating that is going to get me that reliable result over and over again. And so, like, when I think about mindset shift as a business person and as a leader, my primary focus is to build and enhance those systems that drive the whole business, right? And and there are lots of systems that make up a business, and as you get bigger, those systems get more and more complex. But I, as the entrepreneur and as the leader, am the steward of those systems. And I think that once I was able to really embrace that and understand that, and kind of view myself as the bottleneck oftentimes in those systems and try to find ways to remove myself from that, what was really a huge unlock for me. But then at the same time, you have to realize that you're also the one who's responsible for getting in and fixing those systems anytime that they are not working in the way that they are supposed to. And that happens from time to time, or maybe you outgrow a system, or a system breaks, or something changes. That is when you, as the entrepreneur, need to kind of roll up your sleeves, get in, and fix that system, because that is your responsibility. And that is really how I think about business in general. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs would be better suited really thinking about their business in terms of a system that is getting them a desired result. And I think so many times, especially entrepreneurs early in their journey, don't have those systems and really have just created themselves a job, or oftentimes 10 jobs that they have to do. And if they take themselves out of that, then they're going to be in trouble, or they're not going to continue to get the desired outcome that they would like. And the answer to that is to kind of take a step back, do some planning, and to build a repeatable system that is going to get you that desired outcome. And I think that the sooner you can make that mindset shift, the sooner you're going to be able to level up as a business person. And it's something that took me a long time to figure out, to be honest with you. I think building systems from the beginning was pretty natural for me. It's like we have a lot of kind of intricate systems that have allowed our business to flourish over the years. but really taking myself out as the bottleneck to those systems was something that I'm still learning, to be honest with you, but I've gotten a lot better as I've gotten more mature in my business journey. And I think that for entrepreneurs, that is what they need to be really focused on is the systems that run their business that are going to allow them to continue to grow and evolve. So that's kind of the mindset shift that I would highlight. Sean Zhu, do you think that as an entrepreneur, you should have free time left in the end of your day to enjoy things outside of work, or should 100% of your time always be dedicated to work? Um, you know, I think that, I guess the old saying is depends on what your definition of is, or in this case, depends on what your definition of work is. Um, you know, the, you know, it's not realistic that you're going to be all in on any one thing every day for the rest of your life. I mean, anybody who tells you that, um, is lying to you or misleading you, in my opinion. Your energy is going to ebb and flow. Your ability to be productive is going to ebb and flow. And I think that putting too much pressure around yourself of, oh, I'm going to be 100% all in on work all the time, is actually quite harmful in all reality, because you're likely going to get burned out, or you're going to just become less and less effective because you're too tired. You're not as engaged or as focused as you need to be in your work. So I think having that mindset that has been glorified by a lot of people is really a fairy tale that they want to tell you, but oftentimes is not reality, and certainly not the one thing that made them successful. I mean, as I kind of just said in my previous answer, I think that having that kind of creative or unstructured time is super important for me. And I don't even necessarily view that as work, although it is work. But that is the time where I get to really collect my thoughts and bring real intention to whatever actions that I'm going to take, or I'm going to ask other people to take as a company. And so you have to find that balance. But that being said, and the reason I made the joke at the beginning about depends on what your definition of work is, it's like, every waking hour, I am thinking about my business in some shape or form. I probably dream about it if I could remember my dreams. I don't know. But for me, that obsession with achieving something is very important if you want to do really big things. I mean, there's so many levels of that. So everybody's different, and every situation is going to be different, and you have to have the self-awareness and know yourself. Like, what is it that you're really trying to accomplish? What is it that you want out of life? What does a fulfilled, happy life look like for you? For everybody, that's different, and so you have to take that into account when you're kind of answering this for yourself, or thinking about it for yourself. But I would be lying to you if I said I wasn't always thinking about my work or ways that I was going to grow or to build something, because it kind of dominates every waking hour for me. And so, like, if you define that as work, then yes, you need to be 100% all in all the time, or at least I am. But I think it is important to leave space for other things in your life, like family, for instance. Super important for me. I could not imagine. I would not want to live my life solely focused on work at the expense of a happy, healthy family life. Like, that would not be something that would be a full life for me. And everybody's different, but for me, that's super important. And so I'm always going to find time and space for that. I also find that I need to have a variety in my kind of mental activities, and I think that sometimes, like, kind of exploring other rabbit holes that may not be super work specific related, but may help me to expand my mind, or expand my circle of competence, or expand my understanding. That's super important for me, and that comes in through a lot of creative time. And I think that I would be way less effective if I did not have that time baked into my life. And so, like, do you find that as work? I don't know. It just depends on your definition of work. And I think that to kind of wrap it all up, and it's something that I talk a lot about, and I think that there's just not enough focus on it. But it's like, you really need to be thinking about your life and how you're going to craft the happy full life for you and whatever that looks like. And that can just take so many different forms. It can include entrepreneurship. It can not include entrepreneurship. And it can include making tens of millions of dollars, or it can include making tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, there's ways to find happiness and fulfillment in so many different avenues, and you have to go and figure out what it is that you want out of life, and then reverse engineer that, and whatever that looks like. And if that requires to be 100% work focused all the time, then that's the answer for you. And for some people, I think that probably is the case, but for a lot of people, maybe it's quite different. But the question in and of itself shouldn't be how much time should I be working. It should be, how am I going to create a happy, fulfilled life for myself, and what does that look like? What are the components of that look like? And reverse engineer that, and then that's where you'll find your answer. And that just looks so different for every person. And I think that I just don't get too sucked in to the culture of you have to be working all the time to accomplish anything, because a lot of times people are doing that and they say that, and then they go out and they start taking actions, but they have no purpose, they have no meaning, they have no why to whatever actions they're taking, and then they don't find that fulfillment, and they don't find that they're getting the results that they wanted, because they missed the most important piece of it all, which is the why you're doing it. And so once you find your why, once you find that vision, then the rest of the actions will oftentimes take care of themselves. And so I would really encourage you to go focus on the why. What are you really trying to accomplish? What does that fulfillment purpose look like for you? And then come back and answer that question, and answer the work question for yourself as it relates to your answer on your why. So that'd be my best advice for you, and I hope you take it. Eric, what do you do to combat burnout, and how do you judge when it's time to address it? Um, it's like I said before, in life, your energy levels ebb and flow, and your ability to focus ebbs and flows, and your motivation ebbs and flows. And you have to have some self-awareness around that, to know like when you are maybe putting a little bit too much focus on one aspect of your life, and you need to rebalance for a little while in order to bring yourself back into balance, or wherever that looks like for you. And so like the kind of cop out answer is, it comes down to self-awareness. I mean, I feel like, I'm generally pretty good at managing my energy levels, and I know when I'm getting kind of just overwhelmed or tired, and I'm not making decisions as good as I feel like I should be, or I feel like my mind is cloudy. Generally my body tells me first, like when I'm just kind of worn down and tired, and that's when I need to take a step back and give myself a reset day or two, or kind of really give myself some more of that kind of creative time to reset myself and reset my energy. And so for me, it ebbs and flows, and it goes in seasons. And sometimes I go through like super hyperactive seasons where I'm focused and working, like a madman. And that will suit me at times, and that's important. And then like I will always feel when that shift happens, and I know I need to take a bit of a step back. And so, it comes down to self-awareness, and listening to yourself, and being honest with yourself, and not convincing yourself you're tired when you're really just being lazy. Like there's definitely a bit of a balance there. So that's why the self-awareness is so important, and you have to answer that for yourself. But ultimately, knowing yourself and listening to yourself, and knowing when it's time to push, and pushing when it's time to push, and really pushing when it's time to push. And when you get a little bit burnt out, then taking that step back and accepting that, and having the self-awareness to know that it's time to take a little bit of a rest, and then come back much stronger. I think it's very similar to at least my experience. I think a lot of people's experience in the gym, right? I mean, it's like you go through, anybody that's kind of gone through really intensive workout training knows that every once in a while, you need to take a week off to let your body heal, let your body recover a bit. And, that's completely healthy and normal and okay. And then you do that and you come back after a week of kind of maybe lighter exercise, and then you're ready to really attack and make further, fitness gains or whatever the case might be. After that time off, it's something that people in that industry are hyper aware of, and I think that it's very similar in working. So hopefully find that helpful. Thuria Ahmed, if you were starting over today, what's the first thing you'd focus on to build a $250 million company? Well, first of all, I would not get hung up on the $250 million company, right? I mean, you want to think kind of going back to my vision, like what is it that you're looking to accomplish? Is it financial freedom? Is it impact? What kind of impact? Like those are really the questions you need to be answering. You don't need to be targeting a financial number, because like when you get to that number, you're just going to make that number bigger, right? So like at least that's my lived experience. So it's not about chasing that number. It's about chasing your why, chasing your vision. So you got to start with that. So how I did it would very much depend on what my vision was. But my vision was to build a long-term sustainable business that I could build for the rest of my life. I mean, and that was really why I picked a product that was not likely to get disrupted by technology anytime soon, that I was going to be able to use the technology that is invented to my advantage to make my process and my business more efficient. So that was like my starting point, 12 years ago when I started it, and it remains my kind of core philosophy and thesis as I operate this business going forward. So if I were starting today, I would still start with that same underlying philosophy. And I would be looking for opportunities that fit that underlying philosophy. So my first thing is I would say, okay, well, what is the mechanism that I'm going to do that, right? And so if I were choosing a mechanism, it would likely be in a service-based business or in some type of a product-based business where I felt like I had a competitive advantage. If I was starting today, if I'm honest with you, I would probably start in some type of service-based business. And it's why you see me investing more in HVAC service businesses. And you're going to hear me talk more and more about those types of service-based businesses. So in all likelihood, if I were starting today, I would probably find a local service-based business that I could really dig my hands, get my hands around and understand, and ultimately scale. And I would pick it in a market that I believed was going to be here 30 years from now. And that was a large market that I knew if I could crack the code and figure out my competitive niche within, that I would be able to expand it and grow it. And so once I picked my industry, once I picked my niche, then I would go all in on finding one good sales strategy to get me to $5 to $10 million of revenue in a 2 to 3 year type time horizon. And, it's like in a service-based business, maybe that would be, I'm going to get really good at local Facebook ads or local Instagram ads that sell my service-based business. And that would be my channel. Or maybe I would just be really good at Yelp and getting my Yelp rankings high and getting a lot of, customers that way. Whatever my channel was going to be, or wherever I thought my ideal customers were, I would go all in on building my business on that one channel, and then really getting my processes and my systems dialed in to be able to service that business, and the people in place needed to service that business. And so I think that that's realistic in a 2 to 3 year type time horizon for you to do if you started today. And that would be my starting point. And then once I got to that point, once I had my systems in place, once I had a good customer acquisition strategy in place on one solid sales channel that was working, then I would say, okay, how am I going to expand my market, expand my sales strategies, expand my service offerings, and then have a plan for growing that to the next level, and repeat that process over and over again until I got to whatever my desired outcome is $250 million in your situation. So it's really that simple, believe it or not. You just have to kind of pick and choose, where you want to start, what industry you want to be in, and how you're going to begin to attack it. And if you look around enough, you're going to see lots of examples of people that have done this. And the differentiating factor is oftentimes they started and they took the first 2 to 3 years of pain to go and really figure it out, and then give up 6 months into that process, as so many people are likely to do. And if you're early on in your career and you don't really know where you want to go and you don't know what industry you want to be in, then I would consider going and working for somebody in an industry that where they are doing very well, working for a business that is already established locally, in some type of a service-based business that maybe you want to understand better. Go work for them for 6 months or a year. Maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll think, hey, this is something for me. I want to go out and do this. Or maybe you'll realize it's not for you, and you go and repeat, and do it until you do kind of see the light and have that eureka moment that, like, hey, this is the business that I really want to go and do this in. So I wouldn't rush into something. Like, if you don't have the answer to how you're going to start today, then don't just go pick something random and start it without any context. I don't think that's very smart. I think you need to go out and taste it a little bit, get a little bit of experience, and then bring that experience to come in and attack business and industry with purpose, following the kind of strategy that I outlined at the beginning of this. That's exactly the model that I would follow. It's the model I did follow. And I would, follow it again. I just think that knowing what I know about the world today and kind of looking at the landscape, I think I personally would probably start in some service-based business if I was starting out today. So one more, Michael, if you got it, and then I think I'm done. What is your evening routine? That's a good one to end on, I guess. Well, my evening routine currently is I'm home every night by 6:30, where I have dinner with my family between 6:30 and 7 or so. Then I spend some time with my children and family until about 8 o'clock. Whether just hanging out just depends on the night, what they have going on. But that's generally my family time. Then I will get into the sauna about 8 o'clock, because I found that the sauna is very important for my quality of sleep. It's definitely a luxury that I would recommend if you have the ability to do it. I've very much enjoyed it. It's been very impactful for me, but it's also a great mental reset, mental time. Don't have my phone kind of winding down from electronics and that kind of stuff. And I'll do that for 20 to 30 minutes, and then I will generally spend about 45 minutes or so with my wife. And then I go to bed about 9:15 every evening, because I'm an early to bed person. And I find having that consistent sleep routine is extremely important in my energy levels and how I feel and how I, am able to attack the next day. So it may sound boring, but I do that, almost every night. There's very few nights that I miss that routine. And even when I'm traveling, I generally try to stick to the same eating and sleeping routine, because I find that to be very important for me and how I'm able to focus and attack it. So I hope you found some of those productivity tips useful. Don't forget to hit the like button. I didn't ask you for that, but hit the like button and comment if you have any suggestions for us on this going forward. But tomorrow we are releasing a whole video about productivity with my top 10 tips that I distill that I think are actionable, that you can go out and you can try this week and hopefully have an impact on your life today. So I'd highly recommend you go out and watch it tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Love you to watch it, and love for your comments and feedback on it, and let us know how you like the new style, because I think we're going to start doing more videos like that. Maybe you can ask us like what subjects you would like us to focus on, because we really want to have actionable subjects that we're talking about every week, both in our videos but in this Q&A. And so if you have any suggestions for topics you would like us to focus on, please share them in our comment section on YouTube, and we will parse them. And if we get lots of interest in certain subjects, we will change our content strategy to try to answer that. But hope you have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week ahead. And I will see you next week.